you feel crazy because
Yes.
you're looking at this red apple. This apple is red and their person has got you convinced it's blue and you're talking yourself out of it that it's red. And that's such a basic example because I was in one for 4 or 5 years as well. And it's like you're in another world and you have no idea how you got there. And I remember just like one day I felt like I woke up and I realized I had fallen asleep at my life in a sense.
This is Dating Greatly, the podcast where we talk about dating, love, and relationships. If you're a woman who dreams of a healthy relationship, but you're scared of putting yourself out there, this podcast is for you. By the end of each episode, you're going to feel more confident, courageous, and empowered to put yourself out there and start meeting your person today. Welcome to Dating Greatly. Today on the show, Morgan Rockwell. Morgan is a spiritual coach and a Akashic Records practitioner and healer. Don't worry, she will tell you all about what that is and what that means. She's also the broken heart mender and primarily assists others in getting over heartbreak and bringing more love and joy into their lives by helping them create a life that's aligned with their calling. I'm super excited to be chatting with Morgan today, especially around dating after heartbreak or divorce. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm in my grandma's house now in Germany, and this was her office.
I love it.
Do you like my decor?
I do. It reminds me so much of like typical like a Portuguese decor as well. Like I love it. It's so you.
Thank you so much, Morgan, for being here with me today. Before we get into helping women kind of come up with some tangible and practical ways that they can start healing their heartbreak, navigating the dating scene after this has happened, I want to kind of dive into you a little bit, into your story. So I would love to know how you came to be the broken heart mender.
I was in a position in my life, was in a very tricky crossroads. I was in a relationship that just had turned very unsupportive and toxic for me. And we had 2 kids together. And the tricky part is that we were living in Portugal, which was his country, not mine. And that's where the children were born. And ultimately, it ended up being decided that I had to stay here and not go home to the States where I'm from. And so that was a really shattering moment for me. So luckily, I'd had the Akashic Records to really lean on to help me through my whole divorce, being, accessing my own records, seeking guidance from my guardians. And the moment that happened, like I was shown this image of this really beautiful life here for me, which was so contrasting to this shattering feeling I had inside of me where I just splintered into a million little pieces. It really helped me. Those key stops really helped in mending my heart. And I thought, you know what? I am not the only person who has gone through a really life-altering event, whether it be a divorce or a loss or a trauma that has left them feeling shattered in a million pieces and don't know where to go forward in order to create a beautiful life. And so I really just felt called to reach out and assist anybody who is in need of assistance in mending their heart.
Wow. Yeah, what a story. And I definitely want to get into the Akashic Records and find out more about that. But before we do that, as you're telling your story, I just think about women or people in general that go through a separation, that go through heartbreak. And even, if their kind of day-to-day reality stays the same, it's still so often that we feel alone and like totally detached. But for you, it was like physically alone, like you're on a different continent and in a different country without your support system. So what was that like for you? Like to be, I have this image, when you take the little man on Google Street View and you drop him somewhere. It's like that's the image I have. Like, okay, here you go.
And that's what I felt like. And interestingly, like knowing I needed to approach this termination of this relationship and this divorce. And I had these 2 kids. And literally the only thing I had inside of me was like, I just want to go home. I'm in a country I don't know. I had to choose a city to move to. I moved to a city where I didn't know one person. Luckily, there's more expats here that speak English. My Portuguese is passable enough, but let's face it, in moments of stress, when your nervous system is not in a happy place, tackling a foreign language is not the most soothing thing to do all the time, especially in terms of enrolling your kids in school or speaking with a doctor if one of you are sick, like these type of things didn't really think about. And so I really had to redefine what home looked like for me. And I really just started with what was a functional comfort zone for myself. And for a while, that really only looked like getting up, taking a shower, taking my kids to school and coming back home. That's the best that I could do because I didn't have a community here. So I had to really understand, how can I be the best support for myself?
Mhm. So how long did it take you? Did you notice a shift, and when did that shift kind of come?
I did. So I think honestly what happened, so when we got divorced, I was allowed to go home and take my boys home for a couple of months.
Mhm.
So we got back, and being a foreigner here and trying to um secure a place to live is so challenging. And I wasn't given any paper that would help me to be like, you know what, I'm not just a digital nomad, which, absolutely no problem doing that. But I'm like, I really need a house. I have children. They're enrolled in the school here. They're Portuguese citizens. Like, oh my gosh. It was just this really overwhelming transition. And so I think that's also narrowed down my comfort zone when I finally got a house and got them into school. I ended up really severely anemic. All of the transition just fried out my nervous system and the mental body. Like my mind was trying to figure out everything of all these puzzle pieces of everything I didn't know. And I was just in panic and survival the whole time. Seeing a lab result where I had almost zero iron in my body was like, okay, I can give myself permission to give into this feeling of exhaustion I'm feeling and rest. And once I did that, I mean, my numbers came back very quickly. I started to feel much better, really in a quick way. And I was able to start going out and checking out different aspects of the city. Doing different things and really balancing instead of me feeling like, okay, I have to build this life for myself and the kids are in school. And so now I got to figure out my work and all of these things. I really allowed myself to go with the flow and talk to my nervous system. I know that sounds silly, like almost every day
Mhm.
that, okay, it's going to be all right. We're going to go for a walk for a bit and just allow myself to be in these certain places and feel what I was feeling.
Yeah, I think as women, anyway, we tend to kind of power through and want to continue to take care of things. And especially when you have kids, of course, you have responsibilities. From my own experience, and also the women that I speak with, it's like the distraction as well, like doing all
Yeah.
the things, getting all the things done. That way, I don't have to feel this fear, like what the hell am I gonna do? Like the overwhelm, the sadness, the grief. And then the moment that, yeah, I have permission to let go and rest. Once we give ourselves that permission and allow those emotions to come through, I find that, yeah, that kind of catapults our healing anyway. Like the moment we allow ourselves to look and
It does.
feel.
Yeah. And that distraction is something I work with a lot. So especially like you said, moms with kids, like one of the personas I see, and personas aren't a negative thing, right? They generally keep us safe. And so
Mhm.
like the busy single mom persona, I work with a lot because it's, of course, we need to dive in and make sure our kids aren't missing out on anything because now we're one, we are two, and we want to manage them through this transition as well. So we go into overdrive or hyperdrive of busy mom.
Mhm.
And that's great for a time being, but we need to also make sure we're not staying there because that can prevent our own healing and our own evolving forward and allowing ourselves to have some more joy and love in our life, which we tend to not leave space for when we're just in that
Mhm.
zone of, gosh, just have to be a single mom, a busy mom, and
Mhm.
finding balance. And that is something I help women work with a lot.
I wonder, within this crazy time of your life, how I want to know, how did you feel about getting out there and meeting a person?
So it's really interesting because even through the relationship And the time I was here in Portugal and married, I was still very lonely. And like, I just knew we were not on the same evolution, so to speak. We were not on the same growth. And it was not a very supportive nor fulfilling relationship. And so, really looking at those aspects of myself as to why I manifested that, why I created that, what part did I play in that, um, helped me. Because, of course, I had this longing to really be with somebody. I wanted to be with somebody I want to. And it's only recently that I've gotten more and more curious. And for me, I've had to really take a look at what like my values are. What do I really desire out of a relationship? And I really had to start redefining what my notion of love is. So we have all of this love conditioning throughout our whole life and how we give and receive. And if we're not fully aware of what's going on in the conscious mind of what we think love is, it can really cause a lot of muck. So I have really slowed down and I'm intricately like unraveling all of these little things to make sure this new energy of love that I desire and deserve can come forward, that it has all this space. Another thing is that I'm very believe in meeting people organically. And I know that dating apps work for many, many people. I am one that I need to feel into their energy. And you can do that through an app, but it's distant for me. I also, I mean, I have just ways that I know that it's going to unfold for me. And my pathway there is continuing to unwind these patterns and these things within myself to make sure that I'm really open to receive this energy of love that I want. So I have not met anybody yet. I do believe it's right around the corner. I feel like I'm in a very good space for it. And it's going to happen in then a very organic fashion for me.
What you said exactly. It's like, this is the time. I have the same feeling like you, like, my person, my divine masculine is right around the corner. I know he's going to show up in my life. And right now I'm using this time, like you, like just getting really clear about like my values, what I want from a relationship, how I want to show up. Yes. In the past, I would write down like, lists of these are the traits and qualities I would want in a partner. And it'd be like supportive and be
Mhm.
like loyal, but I'd never unpack each thing. So it's like supportive. Well, what now it's like, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? So just getting so clear. And also anything that ends up on like the qualities that I want to attract is like, am I meeting those qualities? Am I being that? But it's such an exciting time even doing this and preparing.
It is. And that's lovely. I have fun doing, sometimes I unpack it the other way. Like I make a list of all of the qualities that I can bring to a table, I can bring to a relationship. And so kind of like reverse manifesting, right? Because if you think about it, your divine masculine is trying to manifest this divine feminine who is you. And so by really nurturing that manifestation from his side, put out your list of the beautiful qualities that you bring to the table and what that looks like in the form of you. And that helps again, those specifics really help narrow down because the universe wants us to have what we desire. But if we aren't giving these details, they can be filled in ways we don't understand. And when we think we're ready, something will come up. The other day, I read a quote by Sarah Prout, and I love her books, and she's a wonderful author. And it was like, when your heart is open, was it when your heart is open, your soulmate will show up. Oh, and it triggered me so much. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's in there? My heart is so open. I am ready for love, and my soulmate hasn't showed up. But it really helped me unpack further this notion of um, being good enough exactly where I am. Like it really helped me get into this subconscious mind of being like, okay, my kids are 5 and 4 and they're super crazy sometimes. And who's going to want to join this circus? You know what I mean? Like these type of little things that I wasn't really aware of, like hidden guilt and shame around this piece of paper in the form of a court order. It made like aspects of my being feel very, very guilty that I was not aware of because on a conscious level, I'm like, well, it's just a fact of life. It is what it is. But there were parts of me that really needed some work around this guilt of having this, basically being court ordered to live here in this country. And, it was just another layer that came back. So I was
Mm-hmm.
glad that quote had triggered me to look at that, because I hadn't thought that there was anything attached to that still.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So these almost subconscious ways that we still have blocks, even when we think we're ready to meet someone, even when we believe, okay, we've done the work, I know what I want, I'm ready, that there's still I mean, there'll always be some things, but some
yeah.
core
Yeah.
issues that are still really blocking us from actually attracting that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because when a relationship does show up, it does provide even more of a beautiful canvas for healing for the both of you.
Oh,
And so,
yes.
like, we have to come in with this mentality that I have to be 100% healed and unraveled. Um, I still have moments where I have to interact with the, my ex-husband, the boy's father, and that's not always a joyous time. We try and be amicable, but there's still stuff that needs to be worked on, and that, is not going to put my new relationship showing up on pause. It's just something to be mindful of. And I do
Mm.
see women especially getting caught up in this idea, and it's another distraction tactic, that they have to have all of these things improved before they can meet somebody. And so looking at that notion itself, like that distraction of ticking off all of these boxes of healing this and unraveling that, uh,
Mhm.
it is showing up as there's some like subconscious fear around jumping into a new relationship again, that typically needs to be addressed, because like you said, there's always going to be something.
And would you say that's what would you say is the biggest challenge for women kind of mending that heartbreak and getting into that space of being open and ready? Is it the I need to be perfect, or what would you say is the biggest challenge?
It comes out as I need to be perfect, but
Mm.
really the scariest bit is that when we go through a divorce or a breakup, our source of love is completely displaced. That is where a lot of women get nervous when they think of this new partner coming in, because when that source of love gets displaced, a lot of trust gets broken as well. And so if they
Mm.
have not mended that trust within them, mended that connection of their internal source of love, that will make them less shakable should somebody show up and not be their absolute perfect match. Um, it gives them more of an internal foundation, to stand on.
Trust is such a huge issue. It's either not trusting men and
Mm.
being, yeah, actually completely kind of blocked and
Yeah.
wanting, like almost repel, like not wanting them anywhere near them, just
Yeah.
for fear of attracting another, abusive partner, narcissist,
Mhm.
toxic relationship. Or there's really big, like the lack of self trust,
Yeah.
like not trusting themselves to pick the right person, not
Yeah.
trusting themselves to be able to navigate dating or meeting someone.
It really is true, because especially in terms, of being with a narcissist, and I've done so much work around being, healing from narcissistic abuse is something that I was dealing with. But what happens, because narcissists can be, and abusers can be just so tricky, and that gaslighting is where you start to lose that, your concept of your own reality. And oftentimes through these situations, our intuition tells us something is off, but we continue forward. And it's when we don't heed our own intuition where we start to break the trust within ourselves. And so that's where I see a lot of women are very gun shy to even meet a man, because they don't understand how to trust and speak for their own intuition in a way that gives them their power back. And
Mhm.
so helping them understand what their intuition is saying, how to know that that is absolutely enough to be like, you know what, this doesn't feel in alignment with me, but thank you. Like, you don't need to
Mhm.
give any more excuse other than that, but having that, trust of your intuition, and your empowering yourself to be sovereign, basically. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah, and you're so right that a lot of women are in that space of just not having, not even, yeah, just having no connection with their intuition and self trust because it's just been destroyed. And
yeah.
it reminded me of a relationship that I went through, was definitely abusive, for about, I think, 4 or 5 years, and
Mhm.
completely lost my sense of self. And by the end, 'cause something that you said triggered this memory where I was like, I actually have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what my reality is. So in a
Mhm.
situation that would happen, maybe there was my intuition that was like, oh, this is wrong. But immediately it was like, well, is it? Like, I'm probably at fault. Like, I just could not see the reality. And then I kind of threw my hands up. I'm like, well, it's whatever they say, I guess. It could be anything. Like, I have no sense of anything
Yeah.
that's going on anymore. And
And this is a really, really common pattern. It's so confusing, right? You feel crazy because
yes.
you know you're looking at this red apple. This apple is red, and their person has got you convinced it's blue, and you're talking yourself out of it that it's red. And that's
Mm-hmm.
such a basic example because I was in one for 4 or 5 years as well, and it's like you're in another world, and
Mm-hmm.
you have no idea how you got there. And I remember just like one day I felt like I woke up and I realized I had fallen asleep at my life in a sense. I had just gotten so into this mystical land of being no sense of reality whatsoever. But there was this part inside of me that was just like screaming to get out.
Same for me or something similar where I felt like I woke up. Well, my body actually ended up kind of shutting down. Like I got so sick. And I
Yeah.
and the this was actually kind of funny thinking back on it. It's like I lost my voice. I think for about a week I had no voice at all. And it was
Wow.
so metaphorical. And even then I recognized that it was like I have no voice left. And that was the moment where I knew I had to leave the relationship, which I think I did the next day while I still didn't have a voice. I was like, we need to break up. Yeah. And then I actually went to therapy. Well, actually, I was in the process of therapy already. So without therapy, I don't think I could have gone that route. But my
Yeah.
connection to my intuition still, like, I think it was starting, but that really took a long time still for me to start building that up. And I
It
mean,
does.
today it's night and day.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. I love that. And I'm glad that you mentioned you went to therapy as well, because, our hearts don't get broken overnight. Our trust doesn't get broken overnight. Neither does our connection to our intuition. And so we need this time to repair. I work with women and men for 6 months at a time because we need to do it in a way that we don't re-traumatize ourselves, that we don't get overwhelmed or confused with that not knowing of what is happening, and having somebody to assist you step by step to unravel those things outside of your own head. You need another person, whatever type of therapy that you choose. It's so important to help you so you can become like this beautiful new version of yourself that you are today, without slipping back into any of those old patterns. Like I said, our compass has just been spun a bit. It's not pointing true north.
Hmm. For you, what was the biggest catalyst in reconnecting you to your intuition?
Yeah, so I've always been I mean, I think we're all intuitive and we've always been intuitive, especially since we're little, right? I was very well connected to it when I was younger. I would just I have these dreams that I knew what was going on. I had this really strong connection to the pyramids. I would like know the phone was gonna ring and then it would ring, and I don't know how I knew it. I was just like, oh hey, wow, that was fun. And that just sort of disconnected over time with, different conditioning and different, hey, well, you can't make a living like that. You got to figure out what you're going to be when you grow up and go to school. And
Hmm.
my biggest um, points of, I call them heartbreaks through this last relationship, it was just the betrayal of my intuition. And so it took me a while to admit that I knew that this wasn't right, but I went forward, and to be able to get to a space of non judgment. Even some of my most trusted friends who are highly, highly intuitive, I could not base my big decision on anybody else's opinion or idea of how it should work for me. I really needed, it was like this calling I had to turn in. And so I started to do that, and I got connected with who's my mentor now. I got connected in one of her Facebook groups, and she teaches how people to access the Akashic Records. And I've always been interested in the Akashic Records, and they came calling back to me really, really strongly. it just absolutely changed my life because it allowed me to connect back in with those parts of myself really in a non-judgmental space. It allowed me to be feeling like I was driving, I was in the driver's seat again. And it was me getting this information from my guides and choosing what to do with it. And I think it's just part of my personality that it's like, and part of my lesson of being so disempowered in so many situations in my life, back from childhood to my last marriage, my last breakup, divorce. And yeah, it really assisted me in connecting with that intuition. And so it's become a daily practice for me.
How would you explain Akashic Records to someone who is not in this kind of
World, yeah.
world? So, for instance, you're going to explain the Akashic Records to an IT guy.
Yeah, exactly. So IT guys are fun because they're so like techie. Yeah, so the Akashic Records, by definition, are like an energetic field of infinite possibilities. And so you can access this field to receive guidance in any and all areas of your life. Basically, they are the most incredible life tool. Since the inception of your soul, every deed, thought, and action is recorded in the records. And so hence why you can go in and ask, hey, every time I go through transition, my bank account is really getting low. What's happening? And maybe you will discover a money pattern that came about in your 20s. Or, gosh, I was in this relationship and I lost all aspects of myself. What happened? What happened? And then maybe they take you back to a memory when you were a little girl or a little boy. The guides of the records are known as the guardians of the records. They are ascended masters, ascended teachers, and past loved ones. And so by going into your records, you can ask your guardians questions and receive love, support, and guidance. I love having them. They're like my team on speed dial. So they helped me feel at home wherever I am, regardless of continent, country, zip code, anything like that. I'm always home because I have this.
That's really nice. Like, it's just really soothing to think that, yeah, like our family line or our ancestors are there to support us.
They are. And we all have spirit guides. And some of our spirit guides can be past loved ones that they're with us all the time, whether you're in your records, out of your records, whether you're walking around day to day, your ancestors are here really showing up in a big way to support you. And I think we kind of forget about that in moments of trauma, right? We forget we have this invisible team with us of previous loved ones. It's nice to have that from the spiritual side. We all need that in the physical world, but that can take time. It just takes time to meet new people and find your community. And having that has assisted greatly.
So in terms of helping women kind of take those first steps in moving forward and getting out of this, maybe defeating heartbreak, do you have any like practical steps, anything that women can do to kind of get started?
One of my favorite tools is journaling, and there's two ways you're going to do it. So one is just free writing, and this helps you connect with your intuition, and it can be very simple. Pick up a pen, have a piece of paper, and, you can start writing about your morning cup of coffee or morning cup of tea, what you did yesterday, something you saw, whatever. What's going to happen is it's going to busy your conscious mind. So you're going to be thinking about all these details. You can write your grocery list, whatnot. And then things are going to start to come from your pen that you might not knew were in your mind. And so this is when your unconscious, your subconscious mind can come through. The second type of journaling is really cathartic. I call it it's the uncensored journal. There's a very colorful name for it. The MF journal, and you can MF everything that you want, and you're not going to hurt anybody energetically, and you don't need to be nice, politically correct. Don't worry about spelling or swear words. Get it on the paper. And I like people to have a separate book for this. You can tear out the pages. You can rip them up. If you want to burn them, please practice fire safety. But you can destroy those pages and have them transmute into something else. But having a place to put that garbage out of you and onto paper is really helpful. And there are things that you might not necessarily ever say out loud or feel guilty for thinking. So it's really healthy to get them out of the way so you can start to connect in with more of what is really inside.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I've been a journaling freak for, I don't know, pretty much all my life. Like when I was little, I had little diaries and that just evolved. I have probably, I don't know how many hundreds of journals, and I don't throw them out. I keep them. So it's pretty
They're
fun to
good
go
to
back.
keep. Yeah.
They're really good to keep to see progress and stuff. And really, some of them, during times of breakup or whatever, they're word vomit.
Yeah.
They're, just everything, like you said, get it out and put it on paper. But in terms of like complete unfiltered, like allowing all parts of me to have a voice and to be featured on a page, I think shame comes in there big time. So I definitely feel there's still a filter. And I know no one's ever going to read my journal, but it's maybe just that I'm still pretending that that part of me doesn't exist.
And
Yeah.
looking
So,
what aspect of you there is, and so that's why I recommend a separate journal.
mhm.
I personally like to burn them because fire doesn't destroy, it transforms.
Yes.
I don't like that really toxic stuff next to my positive affirmation. I may be more of a journal freak. I like to keep everything like organized by categories. So I have my journaling I do with my records, my guardians. I have one for business. I have like everything. But this one particular journal, like I know it's almost like my secret cloak, right? Like I can put it on, no one's going to see me, and I can just let it fly.
I
And
love
it's
it.
cool. Like you have to give yourself that permission because I think we sometimes feel like spirituality has to be all positive and glowing, and it doesn't.
Very good. I'm definitely gonna start doing that for sure. If you were to give a woman who is in that space of maybe feeling really alone, if you were to give her one piece of advice, what would you say to her?
I always love to spread the message of hope, like don't lose hope that what you desire is achievable and there are infinite number of possibilities that can occur. Um, and it's just so necessary to meet yourself where you're at and go one step at a time. We get so caught up in, wow, I'm here. This doesn't feel well. I want to be over here. But really taking each and every single step is what's going to get you to where you want to be. But don't lose hope. It is absolutely possible to get where it is you want to be.
Okay, as we finish today's episode, as we bring today's episode to a close, I do want to ask you some fun little questions. So, what is your favorite music or favorite song right now to dance to? I don't know if you dance. Do you dance?
Oh my God, I love dancing. Oh my gosh. There's some crazy Portuguese music that my boys love to listen to and love to dance to. What is the last song? Actually, he's a Brazilian artist. He's called Pepas. Or Pepas is the name of the song, I believe. There's another one. It's a Brazilian artist, Joven, and it's called Acorda Pedrinho, which means to wake up little Pedro. And it's this funny story and it's got a great beat to it and they love dancing to it. Um, so yeah, I like it's way outside the box of the type of music that I like, but hey, it's fun to dance to. It'll get you going.
You're single. What are you most excited about meeting your person?
I am most excited about like this time around. It's going to be actually like a very authentic and a very supportive relationship. And it's going to be built on emotional intimacy and desire for growth, both individual and together as a couple. And it's going to have a completely different foundation than any of my other relationships. So I'm equally excited and a little bit nervous because I can't imagine something I've never experienced. So even seeing it from my guides or feeling it the way that I think it's going to be its own thing. And I don't know. I don't have all the answers. So it's equally exciting and a little bit nerve wracking.
I love that. It's so true. Yes. Like that excitement and like a little bit of nervousness around that for sure. So, for women that are interested in your work and also exploring the Akashic records, where can we find you? And yeah, how can someone work with you?
Yeah, so I have a site, which is morganrockwell.com. I'm much more active on Facebook, and you'll have the link in the show. I believe it's Morgan Rockwell 111. You can stay on my personal feed, or you can jump into my club, which is called the Mended Hearts Club. It's a private group. But in both places, I run all of the same things. It just depends on what people like. I do a lot of free master classes. I've got one coming up. I do a lot of free healings all around mending broken hearts. And then I have, small offers where you can do love journey clearings and recalibration up to like 6 months of coaching, which is super beneficial for anybody who's been through a big breakup, a divorce, especially if you have kids or if it's a long-term relationship. Taking those 6 months, really peeling back the layers one step at a time is what assists women in creating the life of their dreams and becoming that powerful vision of themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Morgan. I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story with us. It's an incredible story. I could talk to you for a lot longer about it. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been just a joy. Thank you.